So trying to be quick on the second half. Let's try and get to the end of it, and then if you have any questions, ask them at the end. So this is about the application that Angus have for the Brockham site, which is in 3 parts. The retention of the Brockham 4 well, which is the one, as you remember, the bottom one. That was the donor well, and then the drilling of the sidetrack, which was from that well. That's the unauthorized drilling. So it's a retrospective application. And then the appraisal of that sidetrack, so testing for oil over a period of time. And to be decided on the 8th of August. You can still comment if you like. They will take comments until the day before, so the 7th of August. The officer's report, I think, will be coming out soon. So they've pretty much done all of the analysis on this. But comments are received until the very end, the day before the meeting. So this will be decided by the members of the Planning and Regulatory Committee at Surrey County Council. So what's new? Because obviously there's been a well for 30 years and everyone is happy with it. So why are we making a fuss? So it's the target strata is this is really the reason. So so far production was from the Portland, the conventional reservoir, which is permeable, which means it flows oil easily. The Kimmeridge Clay Formation is basically a shale reservoir, and it's impermeable. It doesn't flow easily, and you have to do something to it for it to flow oil. And so what it means, or gas, and it actually has both. So the other new thing is the flaring. And what is the extraction method? So what do you need to do to the rock to actually get it to flow? This looks very complicated, but this is just to show you, and I'm going to walk up. This is what the Kimmeridge is. It starts at 750 meters, just below the Portland, continues to 1,150 meters, 44. It's about 400 meters thick. And we have these layers of micrite, which are very narrow, so 25, 20, and 8 meters, which the companies like to call limestone, but they're not really limestone. This is limestone mixed with shale, and it's still impermeable. And this is, again, I'm just going to walk out. This is important because I think it's important to understand the geology and why it might be different to what it was. So this is what the Portland looks like. A conventional reservoir which accumulates in a trap, a structural trap. So you'll have the source rock, the cap rock, the oil, and then some gas. And then you drill a well, and under pressure you suck it up like with a straw. That's a Northern Donkey. Should be there, a Northern Donkey instead of the rig. This is an unconventional reservoir, and that's what the Kimmeridge is like. That's why it stretches across the whole of the Weald to Dorset and beyond. And so the oil and gas is trapped within that rock. It doesn't migrate and accumulate. Well, actually it does, because that's the source rock for the conventional reservoir. But when you actually drill into the source rock as a reservoir, it's unconventional because it hasn't migrated yet. So then you're extracting it from the source rock itself, not from the conventional reservoir in the trap. And so when you extract from this unconventional continuous layer, you have to get to as much of the rock as you can, and because it doesn't drain into a conventional reservoir, you have to drill a lot of wells. So this is what it shows. It shows the pads on the surface, and then you can have multiple wells drilled from each pad, and then they can go sideways to reach as much of the rock as possible to cover a wide area. And so this is the type of drilling that I think Stephen Sanderson is referring to in his video, back to back, in his interview. This is a quote from that interview. And so I'm mixing here Yukog and Angus because they are both targeting the same strata. And in fact, other places, Leith Hill is also targeting Brockham, Broadford Bridge. So this is not a unique situation. This is part of a puzzle. It's a part of a bigger picture. So he said this type of oil deposit, this is about the Kima Ridge, very much depends on being able to drill your wells almost back to back, so it becomes very much like an industrialized process. Now, I just want to, so I went to Horse Hill last week, and I asked students, understand, what does it mean back to back? And after, about, I think it took half an hour in total trying to get an answer, he said, it's 4 to 6 pads in a 100 square kilometers area. So 10 kilometers by 10 kilometers, you've got 4 to 6 pads, which means you can have a pad every 4 or 5 kilometers. And then each of the pads can have 4 to 6 wells. I mean, that's what he said at Horse Hill, that you can have up to 6 wells. If you won't have any more, then you have to make it larger, the pad. So that gives you an idea of what this might look like. But obviously the problem is that, this is why I've got this slide, the planning system is stopping this in its tracks. So it takes a long time to get a permission for a new well, for a new sidetrack, and then another well, and another sidetrack. So the planning system is what is stopping a mass-scale industrial development. But what the government wants to do is to scrap that. So they want to make it permitted development to drill an exploratory well into shale onshore. Now, it's also confusing whether this applies to the Weald or not, because here what we have is shale oil mixed with some gas as well. So we have some of gas. So this is aimed, as we understand, principally at what's happening up north with the Bowland Shale. But, we're still concerned because they can say at one point, well, we're after gas from the shale because it is shale. So, why is it not permitted development? So anyway, so flaring and the generator. It's a 12-meter high flare stack that's going to be at Brockham. There hasn't been any before, I don't think. So just to my understanding, there's never been any flaring. Any gas that came up with the oil from the Portland would have been probably vented because there was not a lot of it in it. But now it's going to be flared. We won't actually be able to see when it's flaring. You can only see the hot air moving, but you have to be close to see that. So there are, again, a lot of unknowns about this. What is the composition of this gas? How much of it will be coming? We don't know, because it's a new strata. And, it's new everywhere because it's never been produced from anywhere in the country. It's been tested at Horse Hill for 3 days. That's it. So there is not a lot of information about this. They tried at Broadford Bridge, but that well didn't work at all. So, so there is no information on that. The other point is, because of the old environmental permit, we have no monitoring for this at all. At this stage. And so the Environment Agency is in the process of putting that permit together, but we've had a meeting with the EA a year ago in July, and they have then requested additional information from Angus. That still hasn't been provided. So it's taken them over a year now to provide information, and it's still not there, and we still have an old permit, and we still don't know when the new one will be in place.
Ada, can I just say, alongside what you're saying, one of the reasons that companies do not respond to these kinds of questions from the Environment Agency or the HSE is they delay because they then invoke the fact that there hasn't been a decision made within the time frame allowed by statutory reasoning. So you've got a company that's delaying giving the information and then claiming they're not deciding. And that's permissible. Crazy, but that's permissible.
The concern about air quality is to do with potential significant impacts of releases of nitrogen dioxide, VOCs, volatile organic compounds, for example, benzene, which is a carcinogen, and possibly hydrogen sulfide. And thank you, Sue, again, for your excellent comment to Council. I've actually picked up this is from Angus, but you've included it. And so this is where we're showing, this is the screening that Angus provided, and there's these highlighted numbers are showing you, so this is for benzene, 2 different hourly and annual mean, and then nitrogen dioxide, and these numbers are going over what is the threshold between insignificant and significant impact. And so what they're supposed to do with this is do a detailed analysis, not just say, oh, but it's going to disperse because the nearest house is 500 meters away. And they haven't done the detailed analysis. Yes, and just one thing to mention on hydrogen sulfide. It's quite a nasty substance. Well, it stings for first thing, but it's also poisonous and it can explode when it's mixed with air.
Can I just add a point before you do move on? Brockham is notorious for its static air. Because we're up against the slope of Box Hill, air is very static hereabouts, and there's very high incidence of asthma in children. But it could make matters particularly nasty, people are thinking of writing letters, in an area which has unusual patterns of airflow anyway.
Well, that's why the detailed assessment should be done, because it needs to, I suppose these are the things that it should take into account, how the air is moving, and etc., how this is dispersing, and that hasn't been done.
That's the kind of thing that needs to be going to letters, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And this is probably the one that's going to be felt the most, because you will have more pollution from air, whereas pollution to water is something that might happen, might not, and if it happens, it might take years before you actually find out anything, but the air is basically a given. It's just how much of it is going to be.
Adela, I'm sorry to interrupt again, but I just want to go back to something you put up just now. Ministerial statement that in non-fracking shale gas exploration, which is what Angus state this to be, is it not?
They claim it's non-fracking, they claim it's conventional.
Is to be treated as permitted development.
Yes.
Now, does that mean, if they stoutly tell us this is not fracking, just have to be allowed?
There is a consultation out now, and I think there are still some. It's not going to be a Wild West thing. I mean, there's still going to be some
regulation.
Some regulation. But I actually honestly don't know. But I think the danger here is that it is shale and it has gas, and it might well be what this says.
This consultation on permitted development is open until October the 25th.
Yeah.
So there's time to make comments, but it
Yes.
is Humpty Dumpty land, isn't it? It'll mean what they take it to mean.
Yes.
And you can't actually believe some of the words that are on there, because the wheel is being exploited for oil, but they keep calling it gas. So you've got to be quite cynical in looking at the word.
Yeah, and also it's oil, but there is some gas that comes up with it. So what stops them from saying, oh, we're looking for gas now, and not oil? So
the legal word is petroleum.
sure.
Yes.
Petroleum
exactly. You started
encompasses
talking about
oil
that.
and gas.
That's right. That sounds good.
That's why it's called the
Thank you.
Petroleum Act.
Petroleum. So we've got petroleum.
And
Maybe that's what they
one
should call
By
it.
the way, they fiddle around with words.
Morris, the other thing to mention to you, just briefly, Angus claimed that it's a conventional development here,
They always have.
but
Yeah.
it will need to have unconventional methods of development. So you work that one out.
No, it's actually, I think they have admitted that it's an unconventional strata.
Have they? Oh, okay.
But that they will extract it conventionally. So yes, it's the other way around. Yes, sorry. But yeah, it's but how do you do it? I mean, I don't know. So just so we're on this now on the process. So what Angus are saying is that they will do acid wash. This is what they said to the EA. They said to the council that they will try and extract oil without any processes, but might revert to using acid if there is a need, which is quite handy, isn't it? Now, with that statement, Angus said, but iodizing has been going on for 120 years, and it's an established practice, and there's nothing to worry about. So, but what the problem is that they are talking about this process here, which is just washing a well, and that is an old process. It's been going on, for decades. But what's happening, and this is a technology that's coming from the States, where this is all way ahead, and there is a lot more experimenting going with extraction in different methods. And so there is more. So the difference is that you put more of the acid together with other chemicals, and you apply it under pressure, and then it actually propagates. It goes into the rock. So as opposed to cleaning the well, you're actually stimulating the rocks, and that's the difference. You're targeting the formation and not the well. And then within the stimulation, you have below fracture gradient, which is matrix acidizing, and then once the pressure goes over the fracture gradient, it is acid fracking. So this is what these two are showing. Those fractures that to the right, they actually should be showing further away, because they can be much longer than where the matrix acidizing gets to. And it can be hydrochloric or hydrofluoric acid, but on limestone it is hydrochloric, which is less. I mean, hydrofluoric is the most nasty one, isn't it?
Yeah, if